Okay, we are in middle of Torah Yud Gimel in the Likutei Moharan called Ashrei Hashgacha, and we are in part Dalid, in the fourth part in this Torah. And here, Rebbe Nachman, we started speaking about this in the last year, how Rebbe Nachman explains to us that drawing Hashem's hashgacha upon us, the hashgacha of Hashem upon us, is drawing the consciousness of Torah within us, in our life. Because Rabbi Nachman explained that, as we know, hashgacha of Hashem is the experience that Hashem is watching over you, and that you're completely seen by the Ribono Shel Olam. The experience that you're completely seen by Hashem, really seen by Him, not just like when you see something by accident, but when you actually see something, look at something into the depth of that thing, and you actually not just see it and not just look at it, but you actually understand it to its depth. So the vision of Hashem, so to speak, is permeating and saturating our entire existence. And that's what it means, hashgacha of Hashem. Okay, that's a certain experience of real closeness to the Ribono Shel Olam. That part of that experience is knowing that everything is taken care of, that everything that you're going through is by Hashem, is for your benefit, and everything is being taken care of, and you have nothing to worry about. Just like when a child feels that, when a child knows that his father is standing there watching over him. So even if something, even if something comes along that might worry him in another situation, in another setting, but the fact that the father is there watching over him, that completely relaxes the child and soothes the child so that he's not afraid of anything. And if even for a moment, depending on how old the child is, but if the child feels for a certain time that where is his father is you can't find his father, then he'll break out into crying and worry. So the experience of the hashgacha of Hashem upon us is very similar. And it's a lot more than that, obviously, right? Because if a child feels that the father is watching over him, the father is on the side, that's one level of hashgacha. Here, we are trying to draw the experience of hashgacha of Hashem, that our entire existence is permeated and saturated by the vision of Hashem. Hashem not just seeing us, looking at us, but looking within us and understanding us to the core. That's what the experience of hashgacha is. And so that, says Rebbe Nachman, is we merit that. We draw that within us, into our life, into our experience, by drawing the eyes of Hashem upon us and within us. How do we draw the eyes or the vision of Hashem upon us or within us? So the eyes of Hashem, the vision of Hashem, is made up of 4 parts. Just like an eye has 4 parts to it, the Zohar says, these 4 parts are corresponding to the 4 parts, the 4 categories in the Torah: the ta'amim, nekudot, tagin, otiyot, the signs of the tune of the Torah, the vowels of the Torah, the spikes or the crowns upon each of the letters in the Torah, and the letters themselves. And these correspond to the 4 parts of the eye, the pupil of the eye, and the 3 rings around it, the 3 colors surrounding it. And so the eye of Hashem, or the vision of Hashem, is the Torah. And the closer you put that vision upon yourself, and the closer you get to that eye, to that vision, the more of that hashgacha you will experience. Just like, says Rabbi Nachman, in our physical experience of sight and vision, the further the thing that you are looking at is, the harder it is to see that thing, and then the vision is weaker. The sight, looking at something, paying attention to something, connecting to something through your sense of sight, is a lot harder, and when it's far away, and it's watered down. It's dispersed when it's far away, and it's weakened when it's far away. And the closer something is to you, right? If your child is right in front of you, right next to you, under your nose, then there's a different type of hashgacha watching over the child than if your child is, I don't know, at the other end of the playground, right? And so we want to get as close as possible to the eye of Hashem, to the vision of Hashem, and that's done by becoming close to and incorporating within us the consciousness of the Torah, by learning the 4 parts of the Torah, or by learning the Torah, which is made up of these 4 parts. Rabbi Nachman also said how the beginning of the Torah, the first word in the Torah, expresses and represents all of these 4 parts, because the first word of the Torah, the Bereshit word, is made up of, in the middle, Rashi, and on the outside, the word Bat. Bat represents the Bat Ayin, the pupil, and the Rashi, the fathers, or the heads, or the leaders, are the 3 forefathers, Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, which represent the worlds of Bria, Yetzira, and Asiya, that come after the pupil of the eye, that come after the Malchut of Atzilut. And they represent the 3 rings, or the 3 colors of the eye surrounding the pupil of the eye. And so all these 4 are represented in the first word of the Torah, Bereshit, because the Torah is made up of, the Torah is the eye of Hashem, which is the pupil and the 3 colors surrounding it. So in the middle of the first word, you have the 3 colors surrounding it, the Rashi, and then you have the Bat that is on the 2 ends, the Bet at the beginning of a Bereshit and the Tav at the end of that word, which represents the pupil of the eye, that kind of combines and includes within it all the other 3. Okay? And so that's the word Bereshit. And the tzaddik, when the tzaddik gives over Torah, he is giving over, or he's drawing the eye of Hashem, the consciousness of Hashem, Hashem watching over us. He's drawing it upon those that are receiving that Torah, by spreading the Torah to them, by giving over that Torah. Okay, so now let's continue in the Likutei Moharan, inside. We are like the second paragraph. אבל כשהדבר הנראה הוא רחוק, אז קודם שיגיע כוח הראות לדבר הנראה, מתפזר בתוך האוויר ונתעקר, ואין מגיע בהכאה על הדבר. ועל ידי זה אין חוזר הראות לעיניים, ואז אין העיניים רואים, כי עיקר הראות מביא ההכאה. כי עיקר הראות הוא מחמת ההכאה. וזה שוב נע הבט משמיים וראה. So Rebbe Nachman explained that the way the vision of a person works is that there is the sight of a person goes out from a person's eyes, and it reaches that thing that he is intending to look at, that thing that he is intending to see, and then that returns to the person and lets the person know, in the da'at of the person, in the sensory capacity, in the consciousness of that person, it lets it know what was seen, and that's how the person perceives what is seen. And we spoke about how even scientifically it's been proven that a person's eyes, what we see, what we think we see, is not actually what it is, it's what we perceive to see. And it's the light, the way the brain is perceiving that light. And that's why that can change. We spoke about the experiment where people were wearing glasses that were colored green or colored red for a month, and then at the end of the month they would see everything the normal color because the brain adjusted. And so what we see is really the perception. And so the sight goes out, brings back the information or the way the light is, and then the brain perceives it, the da'at perceives it, arranges it. And so when something is too far away, the sight of the person on the way there to get that information gets lost, gets dispersed. And that's why a person can't see things that are too far away. So that's why what we want to do is we want to be as close as possible to the ability, to the eyes of Hashem. Okay, because this is all metaphoric, but it all works. The mashal and the nimshal work. V'zeh shuv nahabet mishamayim ureh. So says Rebbe Nachman, this is the deeper understanding of the pasuk in Tehillim that says, that David says to Hashem, Hashem, return and look from above, look from heaven, look from Shamayim upon us. So what does that mean? Says Rabbi Nachman, Shashuva batash mabit mishamayim alenu. Yashuv alideh ha'haka'a, Yashuv ha're'ut le'enav. Ve'az ure'eh, ki ha're'iyah alideh hashavat ha'habata. So says Rabbi Nachman, when David the Melech says in Tehillim, Hashem, return and look from Shamayim upon us. What does it mean, return? Return means that the sight, the power of sight, that vision that goes out towards that thing that you're intending to see, towards that thing that Hashem is intending to see, towards us, should return, should be the eyes of Hashem should be so close to us that the sight should return to Hashem, and there should be a proper hashgacha, and we should be properly seen in the eyes of Hashem. Okay, that's what it means, return. And by that returning of the sight to Hashem, we shall be seen completely by Hashem, and our existence will be permeated, saturated by the sight of Hashem, and that's what hashgacha is. Then we shall be seen by Hashem. Because sight comes from the returning of what's called the habata, the looking. When the looking, the ability to see, when that energy is returned to the eyes and it brings back that information, that's when you see something. So that's what it means, Hashem, return and look from Shamayim upon us. Return means return, that vision should be returned, bringing back. We shall be seen in the eyes of Hashem, and then Hashem's sight will be upon us. Hashem's hashgacha will be upon us. What's very interesting is that there's a meditation from the Baal Shem Tov, a very wonderful meditation that a person can practice every day that works on this exact point here. And the meditation is where the Baal Shem Tov says that a person needs to visualize, and visualize is just another word for imagine. A person needs to imagine how Hashem is in front of you. And deeper than that, you must imagine in this meditation, the purpose is to imagine that you are looking at Hashem as real, make it as real as possible, as if he is like your friend that is in front of you. So imagine what that connection is that happens, that feeling. What's that feeling that you feel when you're looking at your friend in front of you? How real does that feel? And aim and imagine to feel this way towards Hashem, that Hashem is in front of you and you are looking at him and feeling that to be as real as if you were looking at your friend in front of you. And then that's the first part of the meditation. The second part of the meditation is imagine that Hashem is looking back at you. And it's not just looking. We're not speaking in this meditation about just looking. It's about being seen. You are seeing Hashem, connecting to Hashem in a deep way, just as you were really looking into the eyes of your friend in front of you. And the second part of the meditation is that Hashem is looking back at you, looking back into you, and gazing back into your eyes. And feel that to be real. Imagine that to be real. And seek to experience that as real as possible. And so that's a very, very, very powerful meditation to feel Hashem in a tremendously real way, and to increase your Yirat Shamayim, to increase your consciousness of Hashem, and you can merit to have tremendous miracles manifested for you from this consciousness that you have increased from this living, from this place from living and from this place. Especially a wonderful place once a person gets used to this meditation, and you've built up that experience by visualizing and imagining it, you can do it in a lot less time, right? It could take you a lot less time to get into that state. And then you can do it in a couple of seconds. And then a wonderful place to practice it every day would be before at the beginning of Shemona Esrei. Adonai Sfatai Tiftachu Pi Agiti Elitacha. Sit there for a couple of seconds and practice this meditation. You can also bring yourself back to it at certain checkpoints within the davening, within the Shemona Esrei, for example. You can also bring yourself back to it when you sit to begin learning a shir of Torah every day. And throughout the day, you can practice it. So this is a wonderful, wonderful way to develop a real experience of Hashem, that Hashem is constantly with you, constantly watching over you, constantly seeing you to the depth. You're completely seen by Hashem. And that gives you, in that experience, is a feeling of being supported by the divine, supported by the Ribbon Shalom in every aspect of your life. When you know that your Father is there, you feel your Father there looking over you, watching over you, that experience is an experience of being supported completely. And that's an experience of emunah and bitachon. It takes away any worries, any anxieties, any fears. And it brings tremendous, tremendous chesed and kindness in a person's life. And it brings a person to dat, as we saw in the first part of this Torah. So that's a wonderful meditation from the Baal Shem Tov. Let's continue now here in Likutei Moharan. V'zeh bechinat ve'achayot Ratzo va-shov. Baal Shem Tov said that this is the aspect also of ve'achayot Ratzo va-shov. Rabbi Nachman, in the last part of this Torah, in part Gimel, in part 3 of this Torah, brought the same pasuk that we just said that he's bringing here, ve'achayot Ratzo va-shov. Ve'achayot Ratzo va-shov, it's a pasuk in Yechezkel, speaking about these angels, these tremendous angels called the Chayot. Tremendous angels that are called Chayot, tremendously powerful angels from very, very, very high worlds. They're tremendously great and tremendously powerful. That each one of them is greater than the whole universe, the whole physical universe that we're aware of. The smallest one of these angels. So they're tremendously powerful. These angels called the Chayot. But he was describing them. He saw them in his prophetic vision, in his nevuah, and he was describing how they were running and returning. So Rabbi Nachman, so first of all, this pasuk ve'achayot Ratzo va-shov, running and returning. We know the famous Baal Shem Tov. The Baal Shem Tov said that the word chayot, which is the name of these angels, also is a word that means the energy of life, your life energy, like the word chiyut. And he explains that the life energy of a person is always, it has an ebb and flow. Okay, and that's why do not be concerned if at a certain time you don't feel the great passion of connection to Hashem, because a person is always in an ebb and flow, and there's ups and downs. And if in the place of the lack of that passionate excitement in the connection to Hashem, you seek Hashem from that darkness, from that concealment, and then you will merit a greater flow of energy afterwards. A greater revelation will come from that. And not only that, but the greater revelation needs in preparation for that the concealment. And that's why Hashem created the world as night and day. There is a night that always precedes the day. You need these two need each other. And it's like the vessel and the light in Kabbalah, the kelim and orot. The vessel is always the concealment, and it's the preparatory period, the preparatory stage. And the light is the revelation that is drawn into the prepared vessel. And so that's why there's another place in Likutei where Rebbe Nachman says that when a person sees that, so many years, he's gone through so many difficulties trying to succeed in serving Hashem properly, and all these goals that he has in his service of Hashem, and learning more and davening better, and feeling more dveikut, etc. And he's for many years been going through so many challenges, and every time it's been so difficult until he doesn't know anymore what's going on. Why is it so difficult? You should know, says Rabbi Nachman, that all these difficulties that you've gone through in order to achieve, even if you haven't yet achieved it, and even if you've achieved only a tiny amount, and you ask yourself, what was the need for all those difficulties and all those challenges? Rabbi Nachman says that the more difficulties you go through in order to achieve anything in Avodat Hashem, that builds up your vessels to a greater degree. And the greater and the stronger your vessels are, the more light you will be able to fill them up with. So nothing is lost. And so when a person looks around and he sees people that are successful in serving Hashem and learning Torah and understanding Torah and davening and all that, and it seems like it's so much easier for them, and and for you, you're going through so many challenges in order to reach that. In order to reach any level, you should know that every challenge that you go through and every difficulty that you overcome on that path just builds your vessels to a stronger degree. So that's the stage of the night, right? That's the preparatory. That's in order to increase your desire, you align yourself with it in a greater degree, in a clearer way, in a truer way. And to the degree, and then to the degree that you merit that, the greater your vessels, the greater you'll be able to have of the light. But that's the way the Baal Shem Tov explained this pasuk v'chayot Ratzo va-shov. Now, in part 3 of this Torah in Likutei Moharan, we saw Rebbe Nachman brings the same pasuk and explained it a different way. We explained it how it's connected to the way the Baal Shem Tov explained it. He said that the tzaddik, when the tzaddik gives over Torah, he elevates, he gathers the sparks of desire from the people that came to hear Torah. Okay, and we spoke about how at the core, all the lusts and all the desires, even those that seem disconnected from Hashem, at the core they are crying an outcry, an outpouring of the soul, seeking to experience the life of life, to experience a greater depth and of life, to experience life in a greater way. And when it's disconnected from the soul, that core spark, that core desire, when it's disconnected from the soul, it is experienced, it is lost in all of these sidetracked in all these lusts and desires of the animal soul, of the nefesh bahamit. But the tzaddik gathers those sparks in their pure form, those sparks of desire, of will, of wanting, and they're called nefashot. Nefesh is a lashon of ratzon. It's a word that means also ratzon, wanting, desire, and he gathers them from the crowd and elevates them, brings them up, and from that he causes a unification and draws down new Torah. And so Rabbi Nachman explained v'chayot Ratzo va-shov, that's the running and returning. So the running is the bringing up, the gathering and elevating the desire, the wanting. When you're running towards something, it's because you want that thing that you're running towards. So the running phase is the aspect of the wanting, which is the concealment stage. It's the preparatory stage, the night aspect. The returning is the light that comes back when the tzaddik brings down the Torah, and that's the returning. And so that's what Rabbi Nachman now is using this pasuk in this context. Look at this, just one part of the Torah later, he brings the same pasuk, and he explains it slightly different. And the reason why is because he wants you to see how the two ways that he explained it parallel each other. And so it gives a deeper lesson, a whole different level, a whole different layer of understanding of what we spoke about earlier. And that's what he's saying here. Va-chayot Ratzo va-shov. Va-chayot. Haynu, what's the chayot? Haynu haTorah shehi ha-chayim. HaChayot here explains it as the chiyut, the life energy, which is the Torah, obviously, because the Torah is the life of a person. Haynu haTorah shehi ha-chayim. Ratzo, running, what's that aspect? Bibchinat habata me'ela letata. That's the aspect of Hashem looking down upon us. Va-shov, and returning, bechinat haka'at ha'reut badavar hanireh v'nechzar la'einayim v'tzta'ir ba'einayim. And this is similar to like what we said a couple of minutes ago from the Tehillim, that David HaMelech says, Hashem, return and then look upon us from Shemayim. What's the return? Return is return, that the sight, your sight, Hashem, should be returned to your eyes, and we shall be seen within your eyes. We should be seen within your eyes. And like that, your sight or your vision will be upon us from Shammai. That's how the connection of vision, of hashgacha, of looking upon us, looking after us, looking within us, looking into us, the function of it. How does it happen? It happens by being seen in the eyes of Hashem, and that comes from the return, when the vision is returned in Hashem's eyes. So Rebbe Nachman says here, the energy of the Torah, as we said, the Torah is the vision of Hashem. It's the life energy. the Ratzo, the running, is Hashem looking upon us, looking down, sending that vision to us. And when we are really close to that vision, when we bring ourselves really close to the eyes of Hashem, then va-shov, then it is returned. And then when it is returned, we are seen in the eyes of Hashem, and that's what hashgacha is. Okay, because the eyes are like a mirror, says Rebbe Nachman, that anything that is in front of it will be seen within it. So we want to be seen within the eyes of Hashem. How do we do that? By standing right in front of, being right in the sight, in the pathway, in the path of sight, the path of vision of Hashem, which is the path of the Torah. ועל ידי שאנחנו קרובים אל התורה, נמצא שאנחנו קרובים אל הרעות. ועל ידי זה, כוח הרעות נחזר לעיניו, ונתראים ונצטיירים אנחנו בעיניו. So he says, when we are close to the Torah, so we are close to the sight of Hashem. And through this, the sight of Hashem is returned, the sight of us is returned into the eyes of Hashem. And we are seen, and our image appears in the eyes of Hashem, just like the image of whatever is in front of you appears in your eyes, right? You can see it, you can look into a person's eyes and you can see whatever they're looking at. It appears like a reflection of it. It appears in the eyes. So our image appears in the eyes of Hashem. Our image appears in the eyes of Hashem, and then effectively we have the hashgacha of Hashem upon us, within us. Aval ha'akum, but he says, on the other side, the idol worshippers, because they are so far from the Torah, and we're speaking about not just idol worshippers, but anyone who is far from the Torah. The farther people are from the Torah, Jews and obviously the non-Jews that don't have the Torah have a complete different level of hashgacha. And so the farther someone is from the Torah, they are far from what's called hashgacha, from that experience of being seen and being taken care of by Hashem in every aspect of your life, working out perfectly. And everything is pre-planned, everything is predetermined to be perfect, and everything is being taken care of constantly by Hashem for your ultimate best, right? So that's the experience of hashgacha. Anyone, and to the level that a person is far from the Torah, and especially Allah worshippers, people, the non-Jewish people, they don't have the Torah, they are far from this experience of hashgacha in their life. And then that they are not, the sight, the vision of Hashem, the sight of them is not returned into the eyes of Hashem, so to speak, because they are so far from that vision of Hashem. They are so far from the eyes of Hashem. They are so far from the Torah. נמצא השגחתו על העכו"ם בחצי הרעות, מבחינת רצו, ועלינו השגחתו בשלמות. So therefore, the hashgacha of Hashem on the idol worshippers is only halfway, because Hashem is constantly looking out upon everyone. But for the hashgacha to be completed, you need the second part. There are two parts for the hashgacha to happen. There is one part is from Hashem, from Hashem's perspective. Hashem is looking out upon the whole of creation, upon the whole of the universe. But the second part of that, and that's the part that actually creates this connection, that creates the hashgacha, completes the hashgacha, the function of this hashgacha, is that the creation, what is created, must be close enough to the eyes of Hashem, to the sight of Hashem, so that that vision is returned in the eyes of Hashem, and their image appears in the pupils of Hashem. And that only happens if they are close enough to the eyes of Hashem, if they are close enough to the Torah. So says Rebbe Nachman, the idol worshippers, they have only half hashgacha. What half? Which half? They have the half that is from the side of Hashem, from Hashem's perspective. Hashem is looking down on them, but it doesn't mean that they are seen in the eyes of Hashem, that Hashem sees them. For Hashem to see them, they have to be close enough to the eyes of Hashem. And you're close to the eyes of Hashem by being close to the Torah. The Torah is the eye of Hashem. And so they don't have a complete hashgacha upon them. They only have a half hashgacha, only from the side of Hashem, the perspective of Hashem, and they're not actually, their image does not actually appear in the eyes of Hashem. They're not actually seen in the eyes of Hashem. And so that's the difference between the hashgacha of Hashem upon us, those that are connected to and close to the Torah, Am Yisrael, and the other nations and the idol worshippers that have only the half of the hashgacha. And so we'll see more about that, Bezrat Hashem, in the next shir.